Welcome to the Masterful Coach Podcast with Molly Claire. If you're a coach who's ready to impact more lives, make more money, and create a life you love, you're in exactly the right place. Get the support you deserve as a female entrepreneur. Master your coaching skills, grow your ideal business, and honor your priorities in your personal life. Are you in? Let's get started with your host, best-selling author and master life and business coach, Molly Claire.
Hello, coaches. I have a fantastic episode for you today. I was so honored to be interviewed by Tracy Otsuka of the ADHD for Smart Ass Women podcast. She is phenomenal. Her guests blow my mind every time. And wow, what an honor to be there with her. This is a replay of that interview that originally aired on her podcast, and I'm thrilled to share it with you here today. Before we get started, I want to make sure that you know, if you are listening to this the day it is released, November 20th, 2024, this is the last day to submit your application for Master Coach Training. We begin in January 2025, and the next time enrollment will be open will be for the following year. Yes, that's right, the group that will begin January 2026. So, if you've been on the fence, if you've been considering expanding your ability to coach and truly master your skills, this is your chance. Go to mollyclaire.com, submit your application today, and I will be reviewing applications and, of course, get back with you about either scheduling a call or joining the program right away. All right, coaches, let's go ahead and get started with this incredible interview.
Richard Branson, Michael Phelps, Justin Timberlake, James Carville. Wait a minute. Where are the women? Greta Gerwig, Lisa Ling, Audra McDonald, Simone Biles. That sounds like a list of highly successful titans in a variety of industries. They all have ADHD, but you don't hear much about that now, do you? You know what else you don't hear about? Are the 43% of people with ADHD who are in excellent mental health. Why aren't we talking about them and what they're doing right? I'm your host, Tracy Otsuka, and that's exactly what we do here. I'm a lawyer, not a doctor, a lifelong student, and now the author of my new book, ADHD for Smart Ass Women. I'm also a certified ADHD coach and the creator of Your ADHD Brain is A-OK, a patented system that helps ADHD women just like you get unstuck and fall in love with their brilliant brains. Here, we embrace our too muchness and we focus on our strengths. My guests and I credit our ADHD for some of our greatest gifts. And to those who still think they're too much, too impulsive, too scattered, too disorganized, I say, no one ever made a difference by being too little. Hello. I am your host, Tracy Otsuka. Thank you so much for joining us here for another episode of ADHD for Smart Ass Women. You know that my purpose is always to show you who you are and then inspire you to be it. And in the thousands of ADHD women that I've had the privilege of meeting, I have never met a one that wasn't truly brilliant at something, not one. And so, of course, I am just delighted to introduce you to Molly Claire. Molly Claire is a master coach instructor and founder of the Masterful Coach Collective, where she offers high-level life coach training and certification programs. She is a 7-figure business builder, proud mom of 3, top 3% podcaster, and best-selling author of The Happy Mom Mindset. Molly has learned to love her ADHD brain and hopes the same for her 2 ADHD kids at home. She also loves working with her ADHD clients to harness the power of their unique gifts while creating self-compassion for the struggles along the way. Welcome, Molly. Did I get all of that right?
I think so. I think we've got it right there.
Wonderful. So before we talk about what it is that you actually do for work, can we talk about your ADHD origin story?
Yes.
Can you give us some background on how you were diagnosed, when you were diagnosed, all the things?
Yes. And my diagnosis story is quite lackluster, I will admit. It's funny because as I think back, I'm not sure where along the way I knew that I had ADHD. Maybe I'd heard it. Maybe people had commented on it. But, when I was in elementary school, I just remember always feeling this sense that I was missing things. I would be in class and I would be listening, and it seemed like everyone else was catching a lot of details that I was somehow missing. As we know, these brains of ours sometimes we can make up the difference in ways, right? And we can still do well. And I did that. And when I was younger in elementary school, I was able to do well. I felt fairly intelligent. And then middle school. And I just remember this experience, and I found the same thing for my son when he hit middle school. It felt like the bottom fell out from under me. And it was like trying to keep track of so many different teachers and so many different assignments and hold it all together just felt really impossible. And so, eventually, I actually don't know at what point along the way, I talked with my mom more about it, and we went to see the doctor, and I had ADHD, and I thought, okay, yes, this has been confirmed. And they talked about medication, but it was kind of not really, there wasn't much to it, and there weren't really other options that they brought up. So what's really interesting is it was kind of this moment in time that just seemed to just float away as quickly as it came in. And from there, I really just have always found workarounds and tried to figure out how I could succeed in spite of it. And so that's really kind of the beginnings. And I can tell you more about, college and work and all of that, but not much was very exciting or interesting or came out of that diagnosis other than giving me that sense of what I was experiencing was really happening.
So around what year was this?
This was somewhere in my high school years. My guess is probably close to freshman year.
Okay. And so was it in 1990, 1994, or, when was it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would have been in the 90s.
Okay. So that's when they were first starting to diagnose girls. However, it sounds like they didn't do anything but maybe talk about, you could do this, you could try this medication.
Yes. And I just remember it being a very minimal conversation.
Do you remember having any feelings around it? Was it just like, whatever, and then I just move on my day? Or was there shame around it? Did you talk about it?
I just remember feeling validated in what I was experiencing and this sense of, well, obviously, I know that this is how I am. I know, I've seen this in myself. And here's what I'll say. I don't remember experiencing shame. However, what I have come to find, especially over this last 10 years in my business, and as I have gotten more into coaching and seeing my own thoughts and my things that come up and those that come up in my clients, that's when I've really realized that I've just had this belief that the way my brain is just wrong. It's and I don't feel this way now, right? But this is what I noticed and found. I'm so scattered. I can't do this as well as other people. It would be better if I were more like this or that person, right? All of this stuff. And so definitely at the time, I don't think I realized it. I think at the time I just thought, well, I don't really want to get on medication. So I guess I'll just deal with this and I'll figure it out. And what I will say is that I sort of somewhat gave up on excelling in school until I had this moment my senior year of high school. And it was this moment when I remember I was sitting in this classroom and they're talking about college and, and setting yourself up for success and whatever. And, I had a fantastic mom and she was a single mom most of my upbringing. She did not have a lot of time or capacity to give to me. So I was very much on my own. And I remember sitting in this classroom and thinking, oh my gosh, if I want to make anything of my life, I've got to figure it out. No one else is going to do it for me. I have got to figure this out. And so it really was a big moment for me where I turned things around with my grades, with my commitment. And as a result, when I went to college, I got straight A's my entire time during college. And I did it when I would study. I would do flashcards. I would create a practice test for myself. I would talk about it out loud. I had to use every possible way of studying and do so much repetition that I would see my peers, and I swear to you, I spent at least 10 times as much time studying as anyone else. And I believe that it served me well. It's kind of like this. That was a point in time that I proved to myself, I can figure this out. I can do this. If I work harder, I can do it. And what I will say is between that time and where I stand now, is I've really come to appreciate my brain for the way that it is. I've come to really appreciate that past self, that version of me that was willing to do so much work to figure it out. And I really have been able to release so much of the negative self-talk and beliefs that there's something wrong with me and my brain. Thank goodness. Thank goodness that is not there anymore.
So when this was going on, you were a senior in high school and you decided that I've got to figure this out. Were you thinking, I'm not very smart? Or was there something in the back of your head that was, wait a minute, I am really smart. I know there are certain things that I'm so smart at. And is that what motivated you? Like, did you take a class and you happened to do really well in this one class, or where did that come from?
Well, what I would say in answer to that question is it was definitely a mix, and I think that's the case. Oftentimes we have part of us that thinks one thing and part of us that thinks another. Yeah. And so there was a part of me, especially that kind of anchored myself in experiences when I was younger, thinking I am kind of smart. I am able to do some things well. And I would say the majority at the time of my belief is that I wasn't very capable. I wasn't very smart. I wasn't very good at doing this. And so it is really interesting that I decided to do it anyway. And I just think it was sheer determination to say, I want my life to be better. I want my life for my future kids to be better. Like, this is unacceptable. And whatever that is in me, that determination has been my strength over and over again in whatever I'm doing. It's kind of like, I don't know if I can do this. I have no idea what I'm doing. This seems impossible, but you know what? I have got to figure this out. So thank goodness for whatever that is in me.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you studied really hard, when you worked 10 times harder than everyone else, which I can kind of relate to, did you then do really well? And is that what inspired you to keep going? Or would you work that hard to kind of do average?
No, I mean, I was so committed to getting straight A's in college, and I did. Okay, here's the caveat. So there was one semester that I studied abroad in France, and oh my gosh, they tested us to see what level we fit into. Well, the level that I fit into was full, so they bumped me up a level, which was not a good idea because I was in France. It was French immersion. Everyone was at a higher level than me. And I worked my tail off and I got B's. So other than that, though, I got straight A's in college. Here's the thing about it for me. It was a good experience for me to see that no matter what was hard for me, if I committed to it and I went about figuring it out every single way that I could, I would get there somehow or another.
So growth mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And even now it's the same experience, right? Because in some ways I've definitely created, I feel, some superpowers within my focus because of how I've had to compensate and work at it. And sometimes it's still a challenge. Yeah. So just last week I was taking a lead climbing class. So basically I enjoy doing indoor climbing. I'm wanting to go do outdoor climbing. So I was learning this new skill within rock climbing. And it took me back because now as a business owner, the way I do things and the way I run my day, it's the way that works for me, right? Yeah. And so every time I'm going into a situation where I know I have a class where I have to sit, I get anxious going into it. And I just had this experience of being there, whereas he was telling me details, it felt so hard to grasp them, so hard to remember them. And there just becomes this sense of anxiousness. Am I going to remember that? And it just reminded me of back the way that I used to study then, right? And so, okay, I need to pay attention and I need to write it down and I need to go look at those videos. So in some ways, I've built some superpowers within it. And in some ways, I still just have to do these workarounds and retain the information the best way that I can. And be patient with myself too, right?
Well, absolutely. And I think it's also a lot about learning how to sit in the discomfort instead of running away from it, right? And it seems like from what you're saying, you really learned how to do that well. And you don't have a problem with not knowing how to do something. Sometimes you get anxious, but bottom line, you sit in it and you do the things. And that's what's so inspiring and empowering when we are so anxious and we sit in it and all of a sudden we start to get it then.
Yes, yes. And I will say that for the most part, it's true that I'm okay not knowing or it not coming easily. And I did notice also last week still some of these threads coming in, right? You're not very smart. You're not very good at remembering things, right? What are people going to think? You're slow. And yet I just, kept telling myself, you know how to learn. It's okay if it takes you a little bit more time, right? You've got to do it. And then we do it.
Yeah. What I always tell myself is my brain is not meant to remember. My brain is meant to think. So, because my working memory is so bad,
Yes. Yes.
And if I had my druthers of being able to remember all the stuff versus being able to actually process thoughts and come up with different ideas and use my creativity, I'd always pick the second because I can write things down. We've got ChatGPT, it's now on our phones.
Absolutely. And that part of our brain, like sometimes I just feel like, gosh, it's fun to be me. It's fun to think this way,
Yeah. But so much of it though is the fact that you can think, oh, it is so much fun to be me. And sometimes I don't know what to expect. But I ultimately know I'm going to be okay.
That's right. Yeah.
So you graduated from college and it seems like you did figure it out. What happened when you went to work? Were you still kind of practicing that same everything's figure outable?
I worked for a PR firm for about a year outside of college. And then I actually spent about 15 years as a stay-at-home mom, doing some different side things here and there, but that was kind of my primary thing. And then I started my business, 10 years ago. But yeah, when I entered the professional world, I think that this is reminding me of a recent episode I heard of yours, and I wish I could remember who it was, but she was talking about bargaining with the teachers to get out of class and do things a different way. And, I learned that same skill. It was kind of like in high school, okay, how do I find ways to get out of class that's going to be approved so that I can, not feel stuck, not feel like I just am going to die in the seat and still make it through. And I feel like in the professional space, it was similar. I knew how to get work done, and I just kind of navigated things by finding ways to keep things interesting, finding ways to move my body. And, I did okay. So I think the college experience, I did get a handle on how to navigate that kind of stuff.
Okay, so this is the perfect lead-in because I am fascinated to know, how do you go from having very nominal work experience, like out in the real world, right? To being able to build a 7-figure coaching business. What is that about?
Remember that determination that I mentioned?
Yeah.
So when I found coaching, I really genuinely knew I had to be a coach. I had to be a part of it.
What made you even think of it, though? I'm going to be a coach. Coaching on what? Coaching moms?
Okay, so I started out there.
Okay.
I did start out there. Here's the thing. As a kid, I mentioned this earlier. My poor mother was working multiple jobs all the time. I always say, I think I changed my own diapers. I was just on my own a lot.
How many kids were there?
There are 4 kids in my family.
Oh my heavens, your mother is a saint. Okay,
My
go
poor
on.
mom. Yeah, she was on her own. You know, it was a lot. So anyway, if I wanted something as a kid, I had to get money for it. And so I started earning money when I was 7. I would do odd jobs. Yes. I would help out with kids in the neighborhood. I would do all the things. I was a live-in nanny in my early teens, like all this stuff. So, so I always had that in me anyway.
You were scrappy.
Yes, I was scrappy for sure. So, you know, fast forward and so my sister is also a coach. She had been a marriage and family therapist for 25 years. She found this coaching process and fell in love with it. So she started doing it. She did a practice coaching session with me, and that was how I found it. And she's coaching with me and talking about it. And it was this moment in time where so much opened up in my mind. And it was kind of like, oh my gosh, all the things that are within me, my skills and abilities, I know I want to be a coach, and I know I want to have my own business, and I know I want to make sure that I have a business that allows me to be with my kids. Like, this is what I wanted, right? I find coaching. I knew I was meant to do it. And at the time, I was going through quite a few challenges. I was actually healing from having had chronic fatigue syndrome for a couple of years at that point. I had my kids and my marriage was struggling. So all of this is going on, right? And so, you know, to answer your question about how do you go from a stay-at-home mom to this? Well, I did end up going through a divorce. I got my coach training. I went through a divorce, and this was the moment that this was born and birthed. Going through my divorce, the big thing for me is that I was so scared about not being able to provide for myself financially. Mm-hmm. I'd been primarily financially dependent. I was healing from chronic fatigue, and I had seen my mother struggle financially. Yeah. Not only did we not have money, but she also wasn't present with us. And having that happen for me would have been my worst nightmare. Mm. And I remember this moment when I was just overwhelmed with fear about finances. And thank goodness I was in the frame of mind to say, over my dead body, are my kids going to experience what I experienced? I am going to figure out how to make this business work. I am going to make money, plenty of it to provide for my kids. And I'm going to make sure that I'm there for them. I'm going to be there for them in the morning. I'm going to be there for them at 3 p.m. when they get out of school. I'm going to be there for them at school on their birthday and all the things. And it really was born from me wanting to provide something different than I had. And that's the reason it happened. You know, that was it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So the first thought that I had is you said you discovered this incredible coaching process. What is it? Mm-hmm. Because I know people are thinking, what is it?
What is it? What is it? So at the time I went to the life coach school, which is actually now they're actually closing down their coaching program. But
is that Brooke Castillo?
The life coach school was a big part of the beginning of my beginnings because I master coach trained as well. When I took my training, it was me and Brooke Castillo and 12 people on a dial-in conference line. So I did master coach training, and then I started, while I was building my business, I built my business. I wrote my book for moms. I had a program for moms. And then I was also simultaneously training coaches. I just knew that was the thing. When you ask about how do you make that transition, I did feel like, listen, if I'm going to make this work, if I'm going to be serious about it, I'm going to take every opportunity to learn what I can, to be involved in the school, to train coaches. And so there were times when I would essentially set my business efforts aside and make like $3,000 for a 3-month period to train coaches, because it wasn't something that paid a lot at the time, but I knew I needed the opportunity and the experience, and I was willing to get in the trenches. So I did that, and kind of fast forward a little bit when you say, what is this coaching process? You know, now after 10 years in this, and I have worked with so many coaches, I have a program that takes that process, which is primarily cognitive coaching, looking at what is your mindset, right? What are the thoughts? Yeah. What are the beliefs?
Totally.
And I bring in emotion-focused modalities and that component, and the nervous system and action strategy. So I've really taken that and expanded it. And oh my gosh, let me tell you, it feels like my life's work to bring this together and help people with it.
So I'm curious, though, you were able to do all of this basically in the middle of the day when your kids weren't around. You literally?
Yes.
This is insane.
It is kind of insane. And I will tell you that I know at night, I remember sometimes sitting and working on my book and things like that. And I will say that in the beginning, I did have some alimony and child support that helped to bridge, get the gap that way. And for the first year, I was the primary caregiver of my kids. However, for that first year, my ex-husband lived close by and he had them every other weekend, which was a huge relief. Yeah. And so, I had that. But yes, I mean, I'm telling you, it's so much about mindset and commitment to what you want, because it's like, I really decided one day, this is what I decided. One day I am going to believe and know and have the actual tangible experience of being a woman who makes as much money as my ex-husband, because in my mind, it was like out of the realm of possibilities that I would ever make that much money, which is so cool to look back and think, right? But I thought, I will be a woman who makes that much money and does it while being available and present to my kids no matter what. And it's like the way that I think about it and the way I teach it as well to my clients is, it's like, ironically, going back to this climbing idea, when you think about hiking up to the top of a mountain, I think about anchoring my rope in the top of that mountain and getting up to that point where you believe it, you are it, it is your reality. Getting to that point, there are a lot of obstacles in the way, right? And from a hiking perspective, of course, there's gravity, there's thorns, there's rocks, slippery spots, fatigue, whatever it is. I haven't run into a bear, thankfully. And for me, it's like, it's been emotional blocks. It's been activation of my nervous system, past traumas that have come up. It's been learning new skills, taking the right kind of actions. It's been mindset. And so these are kind of the 4 things that I always think all along the way when you're going from where you are to where you want to be as far as what you believe. When you commit to it, that is how you stay the course. The course is never smooth. The course is never straight and direct. And by the way, the course is full of doubt and fear and discouragement all along the way. And I say this because for everyone, right? And I say that because I hear a lot of times, especially in the coaching space when I'm helping coaches, well, I just need to stay in belief. And what I say is, you know what? There are days I don't believe. But what I do know is that I'm going to get there no matter what. And I may not believe today, but I'll believe tomorrow. And it's just, you just have to stay committed that you're going to figure it out. It's a big deal, that commitment. Having ADHD, we can feel big emotions oftentimes, right? Like sometimes everything's a little bit bigger. And it's very helpful for me to remember when I'm having a super down day that, Molly, 24 hours ago, you were on top of the world about this and you knew it was going to happen. So right now's not a good time to think. Don't panic. Stay the course. You have to do that to anchor yourself in continuing to go forward. The biggest thing with my ADHD clients is definitely the negative self-talk. This idea that the way we are inherently is not going to create success in a business, which is so funny realizing how many entrepreneurs have ADHD, right? But it's kind of like they think, oh, I shouldn't have so many ideas. I need to use more constraint. I need to be more organized, like all these ideas about how they should be different. And I think that's the thing. It's like, if we're always believing we should be different in order to be able to succeed, that's always going to be a roadblock. And this is why I love one of the reasons I love working with them is holding this space to open up them actually seeing that those very ways they are the way they're going to succeed.
Yes.
And instead of fighting it and criticizing it, asking like, how does this make me better in my business? How does this actually improve my business? And I think that is one of my favorite things, because the level of self-love, self-compassion, and that I see develop in these women and their ability for the first time in their life to feel like, hey, I'm okay. And in fact, like, I'm pretty great. Too bad I missed out on knowing this all along. It's pretty great.
And that's what I always say is that, in my program that I do, I can absolutely see the women who they have ADHD and they would make the best coaches. So it is the extreme empathy, this need to connect, their justice sensitivity. That's exactly right what makes them brilliant coaches.
I mean, absolutely, because, in training coaches, sometimes there are certain skills, of course, that I have, like all coaches do, right? Everyone has a unique skill set. But even because of my ADHD, there are certain skills and things that I just do very naturally that I have to teach and train people who don't have ADHD to develop some of those abilities, right? But it's very true because as a coach, I can hold space when I'm teaching a group. I have this ability because of the way my brain works. Ironically, right? We can't remember a lot of things, but I can hold a lot of things at once when I'm coaching. So I see all of my clients there and I'm helping one of them who has a question about a client and she's stuck and she's wondering how she can, adjust her approach. And because of the way my brain works, I'm able to hear what's going on. I'm able to understand it. I'm able to see multiple solutions and approaches. I'm able to share with her multiple solutions and approaches immediately. And then I'm able to back up and make it relevant to everyone else there and all of their many different situations and all of their different skill levels and all of the different methods they use. And so it's like, this is an incredible superpower. Thank goodness my ADHD brain works the way that it does. And maybe it's okay that I have someone else take care of the things that I cannot do very well.
Yeah, and it would also explain why you would have struggled in school when you were younger, right?
Yes.
Because if you have all these ideas that are coming up all the time and they want to put you in this box and this linear path and you're constantly trying to break out of it, no wonder there was a struggle.
Yes. It is so fun to be at a point in life when I'm grateful for my brain. I'm grateful for who I am and how I am. And I'm so grateful that I can have compassion and just be supportive of myself in the ways that I struggle, because it's like, it's just not a big deal.
Absolutely. So I'm curious, how do your kids feel about all of this?
Which part?
Well, right now I'm thinking of my kids where my daughter will be, oh my gosh, my mom is the best. She always has an idea. And so I'm always going to come to her first. My son, on the other hand, can do a little bit of the eye roll. And so I'm curious, do you have any teenagers at this point?
I have a 21-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 13-year-old.
Oh my gosh. Well, as I always say, people with ADHD look 10 years younger. So I'm curious.
Thank you. I'll take the compliment.
How do they feel when you're coaching them?
So my answer to that is I do not coach without consent. So when my kids are going through something, I ask them, what do you need from me? Do you want me to be your mom or do you want me to coach? Very rarely they will ask me for coaching, very rarely. And it's great. And then I just get to be mom. So, and what I will say is, my oldest and my youngest have ADHD, and thank goodness that I can help them to have a better relationship with themselves and their ADHD. Yes. And I will say, so my oldest, my 21-year-old, I wasn't quite there. And so when he was younger, I found myself wanting to fix these patterns so that he could fit the mold, so that he could be more this or that, just like I did to myself. And I hate that. And yet at least now, right? We all can all work through this stuff at any point in time. But with my daughter, it is really nice because I just am always telling her, you're so creative. Your brain is so brilliant. And of course your art table's a disaster. And then I tell her, when I was a kid, I would shove everything underneath my bed so that it was raising up, and I would shove everything in the closet because it was so hard for me to stay focused and clean it up. So it's nice to be able to relate those things and tell them, look, it's not always going to be this way. You're going to figure it out. Love your brain. And I know they do appreciate that for sure.
I think that I don't know where the coach begins and the mom ends and vice versa. Like, I don't know if I can separate the two. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess what I would say is, in a way, thankfully, the abilities I have as a coach to emotionally regulate and hold emotional space just allows me to be there for them in a better way. But I don't put my coach hat on where I'm talking with them about the way they're thinking or any of that stuff. So it's the coach is in me, but the approach is really one of just connecting as a mom.
And ultimately, that's all kids want, right? To be seen, safe, heard, respected. I don't think it's that hard, actually. It's kind of what we want too.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And most of us we haven't had it, and we haven't learned to just like be with ourselves and emotions and be with other people. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
So
everything.
So Molly, what are the ADHD traits that you feel are responsible for your success?
Oh gosh. I mean, my creativity and my willingness to go after things without having it all figured out or all the details. Absolutely. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest things is the willingness to go after it when I haven't figured out all of the details. And definitely my ability to hold space for, it's so ironic. It's like, I don't know how to articulate it, and maybe you have a better way of articulating it, but it's kind of like, on one hand, when I'm in the rock climbing class, right? Okay, this is so many details. And yet I do have the ability to hold space for a lot of things happening at once, which you have to be able to do, especially in building a coaching business, because you're learning to coach, but you also have to learn, you're a one-woman show, right? And so my ability to hold space for all of that and to have it actually excite me to have so many things going on is everything.
So you're good at juggling the balls.
Yeah.
And they always say nobody's a good multitasker. However,
Yeah.
when you are an entrepreneur and you're building any kind of business, you just have to be. At least initially, you cannot afford to hire all the people. I think, though, that you want to get to the point where you can hire someone to help. And it's amazing how that allows you to scale and allows you to grow your business and help more people and all of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Especially with an ADHD brain, right? It's always like, we can't afford not to have help. We really can't. We're brilliant when we can get some help.
That's right. And I think acknowledging that needing that help isn't a weakness. It's just a way to anchor your superpower. Yeah. And one thing, just today I was on a meeting with my team and I was thinking how grateful I am. I'm in a place to say this. We're kind of adjusting some things, and she had sent an email with all the details, and we got on a call to talk through it. And I said to them, I appreciate everyone meeting with me, because when you send me things in this format, it's just really hard for me to digest it and make sense of it. So thank you for coming here. And just to be able to say that and not apologize for it, like, I'm so sorry, I should be better at this. Like, no, it's fine. We can have a meeting.
Absolutely. And those are the best. Because in, a very short period of time, you're able to resolve all of these issues and all those emails coming in and everybody's talking about something different. That's the kind of stuff that makes me nuts.
I know. It's too much. Absolutely.
So Molly, are you working on something that you want to tell us about?
Oh my gosh, Tracy, I am over the moon excited about what I'm offering. Over the last few years, I've offered a lot of advanced training for coaches. So a master coach training and advanced certification in specialties. And what I have not done until now is a level 1 certification. And so I am now offering a certification that is certainly for aspiring coaches, but also for people who are already in a business or a job where they are creating change. So high level leaders wanting to implement change with their team, someone who has a service-based business, maybe they are helping people organize or have a fitness business and they really want to help their clients to achieve results in a better way, or certainly business owners and aspiring coaches. So it's a certification that is a 3-month program, and I'm helping to teach these leaders and coaches how to understand the human beings they are working with, how to understand more about their cognition, what to look for, more about emotional blocks, more about how to have tailored action strategies for the people in front of them that will actually work for them. And I mean, to be honest, I think a lot of this ability to personalize and help people personalize comes from me having to personalize everything for me. It's like when the time management system doesn't work, how do we make it work for me? Yeah. And so that's what it's really about, is helping people to understand those general concepts and then helping them really personalize it and just bring back that human element of impacting others.
So where do they find more information on that?
Okay, so if you just go to mollyclaire.com, there is a Work With Me tab, and you can pop on there and you will be able to see the certification. So I'm not sure exactly when this is airing. Depending on when it does, there will either be an opportunity to submit an application or join the wait list, but I make it really easy. It's an awesome program. So
it sounds
awesome.
like it. Okay, so they're going to go to mollyclaire.com and they can get all the details, and they'll go to the Work With Me tab.
Work With Me. Yep, Work With Me.
Wonderful.
Go right there and you'll be able to find it.
Molly,
there.
Thank you so much for spending time with us here today. I really appreciate it. It was a joy to meet you.
So fun. Thank you so much for having me. This has been amazing.
Absolutely. So that's what I have for you for this week. If you like this episode with Molly, please let us know by leaving a review. Our goal, well, you know what it is. It is to change the conversation around ADHD, helping as many women as we possibly can learn how their ADHD brains work so that they too may discover their amazing strengths. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you here next week. You've been listening to the ADHD for Smartass Women podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Otsuka. Join us at ADHDforsmartwomen.com, where you can find more information on my new book, ADHD for Smartass Women, and my patented Your ADHD Brain is A-OK system to help you get unstuck and fall in love with your brilliant brain.
All right, Coach, that's what I've got for you. Thank you so much for being here. I know there are many ways you can spend your time and energy, and I am honored that you've chosen to be here with me. If you loved today's episode, make sure to subscribe so you're up to date on the latest, and I would so appreciate a rating and review on this podcast. Share your experience so that other coaches can find their way here. Together, this is how we can raise the bar in the coaching industry. Let's support each other in being safe, effective, and ethical coaches. What you do as a coach matters. All right, Coach, let's connect. Discover free resources on my website, mollyclaire.com, and I'll talk with you next week.